Hello, and welcome to Math Extra, the show that puts you on the right path in math. I'm Mrs. Leach. Thanks for joining me today to build your skills in math. So if you're ready, I'm ready to do the math on Math Extra. Today we're going to talk all about the coordinate plane. I want to show you that you've probably seen the number line with the integers of positive and negative numbers. Today I'm going to show you one that's not only a horizontal number line, but when you add a vertical number line to it, you'll get what's called the coordinate plane. Another name for that is the coordinate grid. You might see both of them, but the words are interchangeable. So let me show you what that would look like. Here is your number line with your positive and negative numbers, but now when you have the vertical line added to it and these grid marks, you get the coordinate plane, or another word for it is the coordinate grid. Well, I'm going to show you how to plot points on the coordinate grid today, how to find the coordinates of a plotted point on the coordinate grid. I'm also going to show you how to find the distance between 2 points on the coordinate grid. And then I'm going to show you something neat called reflections on the coordinate grid. So I've got a lot of stuff to show you today. So come on, let's go. So let's see. This one, some things you need to know about the coordinate grid are what's called the axes. So we've got both the y-axis and the x-axis. Some people call it the y-axis and the x-axis. These two, I want to tell you how to remember the difference between the two. The y-axis has a tail and it goes up and down, and the x-axis goes across. And it sounds like there's an x in across. So here's the tail on y, and here's the x on across. Also, this point right here is the origin, and it's right in the middle. That is the starting point. That's the starting point. So there's always a place to start when you're looking at the coordinate grid. And that will show you every point that from the starting point to find the point that you're looking for. So let me show you how to do that. So there are 4 quadrants. Before we start, there's quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. And these are Roman numerals. It also goes in a C, 1, 2, 3, IV for coordinate grid. So you can remember that's how you do that. And if IV, the V stands for 5, and when you have a 1 in front of it, you subtract. That's where you get the 4. So quadrant 1, 2, 3, and IV for 4. Okay? All right. So now I'm going to show you a little bit how to plot points on the coordinate grid. So you always want to think about the alphabet. You go to your x-axis first, then your y-axis, just like you go across and then up and down. Sometimes you have to walk before you can jump. Those are some ways to remember that you go across and then up and down. Now, we are always going to start at the origin, which is the point 0, 0, right in the middle of the coordinate plane right here. So let me show you how to find some points. So here's a point right here in quadrant 1. We start at the center and we're going to go across 4 and up 5. That's how we got this point right there. 4, 5. Let me show you how to find this point down here. How do we get to that -3, -4? Well, let me show you in a different color. We're going to start at the origin, which is 0, 0. We're going to go back 3 and down 4 to this point right here, -3, -4. And that is in quadrant 3. So that's how you plot points. You're always going to start at the origin and you go across and then you go up and down. Now sometimes on the coordinate grid you're going to find that you've got points and you have to tell them, what is that point? Where is that? So let me show you how to go ahead and do that one. So I'm going to pick a couple points for you to find. Let's start and find those, and maybe one down here. All right, so if we're going to find this point right here, I'm going to start at the origin and go over 3 and then down -5. So that point right there is -3, sorry, not -3, +3. We went to the right 3 and then down 5, -5 spots. Okay, this one over here, this red spot, we're going to start at the origin. We're going to go back 3 spots and then up 6 spots. So that quadrant is quadrant 2, and that point is -3. We went back 3. and then we went up 6. That is that point right there. I'm going to show you one more, well, 2 more. We're going to start at the origin. We're going to look for this green dot that's circled. We're going to go back to 4 spots and down 2 spots. So this is in quadrant 3, and this point would be -4, -2. Notice that there are 2 negative signs in quadrant 3. You can always remember where each point is according to the quadrants. If they're both positive, they'll be in quadrant 1. If they're both negative, they're in quadrant 3. If the first one is negative and then positive, it will be in quadrant 2. And then if it's positive and then negative, it'll be in quadrant 4, which is also that Roman numeral IV, okay? All right, so let me show you about some interesting points on the coordinate graph if they are actually on the x-axis or the y-axis, because this can, make people confused. I don't want to confuse anybody. So let me show you these special points right here on this graph. They are actually on the x-axis and the y-axis. All right, so here we go. What we do, we're going to do this letter G. We're going to start at the origin, and then we're going to move to the right 3 spots, and then we stop. That's where G is. So that means we move 3 spots, but then we stop and don't go anywhere. So we don't go anywhere. We're just going to stay right there. And you know what that point is? I wonder what you're thinking. If you were thinking 0, you are correct. So we're going to actually write that point as 3, 0. Stop right there. That's the point G. Now, let's look at A. How do we get there? So on A, we're going to not go right, not go left. So our first coordinate, the x coordinate, will be, what are you thinking? 0. If you were thinking 0, you are correct. So we are going to not go right, not go left. So our first coordinate is 0. Then we move up 3 spots, and our y coordinate is 3. So that point for A is 0, 3. If you look at E, we're going to say, that one is on the x-axis as well. So if you are sure which way we're going, this time we're going to the left, 3. And then we don't go up or down, we stay right there. So we have -3, 0. And then this last one, F, we are at 0, 0. We don't go right, we don't go left, we just go down 3 spots. So letter F, the coordinates are 0, -3. So isn't that really cool that we can actually find points all over the coordinate plane? Pretty neat. So let me show you what's next on this. Let's keep digging deeper. This one is on reflections. Now reflections, if you think of a mirror and how your face reflects in a mirror, we're going to look at reflections on a graph just according to figure out how far apart they are from the axis. So if you think of the x-axis as a mirror, you want to find something on one side and see what reflects it on the other side at the same spot. So I'm going to circle a couple things like the treasure. So here's the treasure at -3, 1. Well, if I count how far it is, 1, 2, 3, from the y-axis, and then I count 3 more, 1, 2, 3, you can see that the reflection over here will be that palm tree. So these are reflections because they have 3 away from each other from the y-axis. So I'm going to show you another one. I'm going to show you another reflection. It doesn't always have to be across the y-axis. We can actually have reflections across the x-axis. So let's take a look at that. So here is this, let me get a new color so I can show you, bright yellow. This guy right here, he, I want to say he's holding a sword? I'm not so sure. Anyway, he is 1 away from the x-axis, and 1 more away from the x-axis is this palm tree. So that's going to be a reflection across the x-axis because it folds up and down. Okay, so we've talked about plotting points. We've actually talked about looking at points and figuring out what their coordinates are. We've talked about reflections, and I've got one more thing to show you. This one's going to be about distance and how far things are apart. So let me show you what that's all about. So now we're going to find the distance between two things on the coordinate graph. Now I'm going to look for things that are across from each other or up and down from one another. And I'm going to see, like this little pirate, how far is he away from these 3 palm trees? So what we're going to do is we're going to count 1, 2, 3. So this distance between these 2 points is 3. Okay. Let me show you about this one. How about this palm tree and this pirate ship right here? Well, how far apart is it? It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the distance between the 2 of those is 5 units away from one another. Okay? So let's see what's next. Now this one, what's the distance between the palm trees and the telescope? So here's a little different map, but I want to show you, if you have the coordinate points on the coordinate graph, how to use those points to help you find the distance. Now last time what we did was we just counted the spaces. Now nothing's wrong with counting the spaces. We're all really good at counting here in math class. So using these coordinate points, sometimes you're just given the points and then you have to mathematically find that. So let me show you how to do that. So look at this. We've got this 2 and this 2, and they're the same. So we don't want to use that point. We actually want to use the point, the x coordinate point, because we're crossing the y-axis. We have a change in the x value. Now, counting would be great. So let's count to see how far this palm tree is away. And it already tells us 1, 2, 3, 4 away. Now notice there's a -4. Uh-oh. When we have a negative, then we have to look at distance. Now, if you can remember, distance would be like using absolute value. And if you remember absolute value, it's the distance from 0. So how far is this -4 from the y-axis? It is 4. And the way you would write that down is using those absolute value signs. -4, well, how far is -4 from 0? It's 4 units from 0. And then on this telescope right here, we know that it is 6 away from 0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the absolute value of 6, or how far from 0, is 6 units from 0. So the total distance for both, all the way from the palm tree to the telescope, is 6 and 4, or a total of 10. So the distance between those 2 points is 10. We have 10 units apart. So we can either use by counting, or we can use absolute value to show the entire distance of those 2 points on a graph. It's pretty cool. All right. Okay, I've got a challenge problem of the week for you people who like a challenge. If both the x and the y values have the same values, in which quadrant could they be? And I actually gave you a little thing to look at. Look at this graph to see if the x and the y values have the same values, which quadrant could they be? Hey, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you learned a lot today about the coordinate plane, how to plot points, maybe how to find the distance between 2 points, or even how to find the reflection of a point. We learned a lot today. So take that time to practice what you've learned, and I'll see you next time on Math Extra.